Right, well, we might as well get started, I guess. Thanks everyone for coming along this morning. We've met some of you along the way, kind of doing various different iterations and versions of this project kind of along the way. We've been working, my name's Andrew, I should have said that. So my name's Andrew Macmillan. I teach poetry up at Liverpool John Moores University. I'm a poet. I'm originally from Barnsley in South Yorkshire, a little village just outside Barnsley. But I live in Manchester now. We've been doing a little bit of work with some groups in Stoke, so with a group of refugees and asylum seekers at the Jubilee Project, which was really great. A little bit of work in the northwest in Rochdale, so with some Pakistani women from the Pakistani community there and some young people from Young Mind in Rochdale, so kind of advocates for mental health in the young, so that was really nice. We've also been up in the northeast, in ex-mining villages and towns up there, so we've been in Hordern, in Seaham, kind of working with communities up there, which has been really interesting. The first time for us doing that kind of work, so it's nice actually to come back to a group or kind of a place that we've worked before with Sue and everyone. So thank you for coming along. All I'm going to kind of maybe get us to think about, and we'll go around and kind of introduce ourselves because there'll be new people in the room maybe for us. All I'm going to get us to do, it kind of, you know, when I say a poet, I'm not going to kind of get us all to sit and write a sonnet about what we're feeling or anything like that. All I'm kind of interested in us doing is, with this idea of the social haunting, which is kind of what a lot of our work has been based around, thinking about these maybe aspects of the past that stay with us, aspects of the past that are still with us, even though we can't quite say why it is or what it is they might be, but we somehow feel this kind of weight of the past kind of on us somehow, as we try and move to the future, and also to think in a really rounded way about these ideas of the past, and also maybe in the kind of benignest way possible to think about some of the things that weren't so great, as well as some of the things that we kind of miss from that time. And a lot of the really interesting stuff that's come out of the northeast has been discussions that begin about the really nice things, kind of things like community that we feel we miss or that kind of aren't around anymore. But actually underneath that, there's some really difficult kind of stuff that's come out as well about kind of my favourite story that I was telling these guys about a kid who fell into a combine harvester, which is just horrific. Kind of and kind of that was a memory that came up. So there might be kind of stuff like that, but really all I'm interested in is doing is kind of finding a way to articulate or think about these things that might actually be buried. If someone asks you your memories, even if your memory is great or it's not, oftentimes memories are quite difficult or they're quite convoluted. Even if you ask me what I had for dinner last night, I'd probably start saying one thing, then think, oh no, wait, I had that was Monday, oh no, wait, I got home late and I just have cereal or something, you know, it'd be convoluted. So as memories are oftentimes either false or they're quite difficult to get his head around sometimes, I think. And so just through a couple of really kind of simple exercises, hopefully get us thinking about things like that. On the table, well, we've got the people that we worked with last time will kind of recognise some of these cards. We'll come on to use those in a second, but just first of all, if we just go around and maybe just kind of say our name, introduce ourselves, and maybe just kind of what it is has brought us here today. So my name's Andrew. Like I said, I live in Manchester, I'm a poet, and I've just come obviously as a facilitator, but I also came by car. Sarah picked me up at Stoke Station, which is very kind of her. Shall we go around in a anti-clockwise? No, a clockwise. Yes, clockwise.
I'm next, Abby.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is you're next.
Yes, I'm Sarah, I work at Monmouth University. I'm based at the Crewe campus, which is where I came from, I kind of grew up. So we've been working on the project together, about 3 years now?
Yeah.
Going on, yeah.
I'm Rose, I'm one of the Rolstad's miners' wives, and Brenda made me come.
I'm Geraldine, retired now, but I do some voluntary work with a charity. I'm here because I think we live alongside our history. Yeah.
I'm Maren. I do photo work here and somewhere else. I come because Sue offered to ask me to come.
I'm John Beach. I'm Edna's father and Geraldine's husband. We're local, and I came because Sue put this together and was interested in it.
I'm Joe Cairns, ex-miner, community activist. I come because Sue told me as well. Troublemaker.
extraordinaire.
We've also done some projects regarding social hauntings and how the strike affected the communities within our area. We went to Liverpool also, didn't we?
Yeah.
There's a similar project up there as well. When we came
And he
through.
talks a lot.
That's what we want.
That's what it is. Yeah. And John, because hungry. That's where the ball is, isn't it? Because he gets in there before you do. Right, anyway.
Thank you.
I'm Diane, and I'm co-leader of the Burslem Jubilee Asylum and Refugee Project. I was also a member of the cast of The Haunting, and she told me to come.
That's terrible.
But who told Sue to come?
Well, exactly. All right, so I'm Sue. So originally I'm from Liverpool, but from being 18, I can't believe that Stoke's been my home. And actually this project has been an opportunity for me to really remember what it is about this community and learn new stuff. So I just had my baby, he was about 2 then when the mining strike happened, and just moved into Halmer End, which was filled with mining families. And I think I met some of my mining mates when we did a miners gig in Madeley to raise funds for the strike. And actually this project has really brought it home, because it's never gone away. It's never gone away in the streets in Halmer End, and it's never very far from the consequence of the lives people are living now. They can always trace it back, whether it's good or whether it's bad. So the good stuff, they trace back to the strength of the community and the relationships, and the bad stuff, they trace back to the destroyed relationships that are still destroyed even all these years later, where little nephews and nieces have never met uncles and aunties because the families are split. And I feel a responsibility now, because like with Brenda dying, and we all know that we're going to die at some point, but we never really are prepared for it, are we? And Brenda and Rose and those miners' wives, and actually this whole Beach family, you're part of a really important part of the history and heritage of this community, and it suddenly brought it home that unless we make sense of it and don't let it get swept under the flipping carpets, then we're never going to be able to move on. And for me, social haunting is about not trying to hide and pretty up the past and turn it into some lovely image of nice banners, all gold framed, but the gritty stuff about real people's lives, you know. So that's what's brought me here today, because I'm still trying to make sense of it. And I'm really glad that I'm such a bossy so-and-so, apparently.
That's how you talk a lot, John.
You would catch up now, aren't you?
So I didn't want to just say I'm here because Steve told me to come because he wanted to do some filming.
It's all for you, I said.
I'm Brendan. I work here at the New Vic Theatre as a practitioner alongside Sue. So I have to be here, so I wasn't forced here. But yes, I worked on, well, I've been involved in this project when it happened last year and was in the performance of The Unquiet and have done some stuff around social haunting. I'm also in the Labour Party, and I also recognise some of the impact that the loss of industry's had in the area. So yeah, that's kind of my role here and why I'm here.
Nina. I'm Rachel. I also work for the New Vic Theatre, New Vic Borderlines as project manager. So I'm here because Sue told me to be as well. But also I think it's been a really interesting project to really look at places differently and really get a chance to understand why the world is the way it is, and to look at something that someone my age only really kind of picked up a little bit about and wasn't really old enough to understand at the time and that kind of stuff. So it's been nice to sort of look at communities in different areas, not just here, in a slightly different way.
I'm Pippa, and I also work for New Vic Borderlines, and I will agree with everything Rachel said, and Sue made me come.
Fantastic. Now we're going to do it again. No, we're not. I'm Andrew. No, fantastic. So all I'm kind of interested in us doing today is, like I said, not going to say, right, let's all write a poem about this, and then I go out and get a cup of tea and come back and see what we've done in sort of 20 minutes. I'm just interested in, you know, as a writer, and I would say this as a writer, as a poet, that kind of writing, it seems to me, or words, or even images, like these ones that we've put out on the table, can oftentimes be a way of getting at stuff subconsciously that we don't necessarily know that we remember or know that we know, and actually kind of writing words. And last time we were here, what's really stuck in my head since are the songs that you were kind of singing, the songs of the kind of miners' wives and things like that. These that have kind of really stuck with me inside, because somehow they get beneath something, don't they? They can get at something that maybe just sitting and telling, remembering how it was, kind of can't. Those kind of words can get at something much deeper. And so all I'm going to do, like I say, is just kind of get us to do a little bit of thinking, maybe get us to do a little bit of scribbling on these blank cards that I'll pass around, and then just to have a chat really about some of the things that might come up or not come up for us. We've got some blank cards here, and I'll kind of explain what we're going to do with them in a minute, but if we just pass them around so everyone's got kind of 2 in front of them, that would be great. I'm ready to take that. Oh dear.
We've got ours already.
It's not just me, just saying.
So, first of all, what I'm kind of interested in, these images that we've got on the table have come out of different conversations that we've had, either with groups like this or up in the northeast or in Barnsley, which is where we kind of first started doing this work a couple of years ago. And we were just asking people to almost not tell us their memories of a certain time, but say if there was one image, one idea that kind of would stick in their head from any time that felt important to them, what would that kind of be? The one thing. It's not necessarily a story, but one image that they sort of would carry with them. And for some people it was a kind of place where they'd lived at one time or another. For some people it was a kind of particular memory around hearing a story. And then we've got a kind of cartoonist to make these into kind of cards. Or for some people it was a specific thing around, say, this is a swing on this one, or the bus stop. So it was kind of almost an image that could represent a particular time for these people. And I thought, we've got pens as well, I should have said, if you've not got a pen we can sort of pass the pens round. And all I thought, first of all, without me kind of rabbiting on and talking, was just to give us sort of 2 minutes to sit in silence and to think about if with one of these cards, if I said to you, I want you to put something onto this card. It might be a word, it might be an image, it might be a sketch of something, it might be a phrase, it might be a line from a song. But if we had one thing that we could carry with us from our own past, that's incredibly personal to us, but the one thing that we would carry as a kind of memory for ourselves. And you can see how diverse they could be. We've got a tooth, we've got the berries, we've got the petrol station, the hand, the spade, the old Casio watch. So it couldn't be as diverse as any of these things, but the one, it might even be a word or a phrase or like a line from a song, like I said. But if there's one thing that we could carry with us as a memory, almost like a calling card that we would keep with us and think this is precious to us, this is important to me personally. Maybe not to anyone else around the table, but to me personally, this has a lot of significance. And I just thought, first of all, I'd give us 2 minutes just to sort of sit in silence, to think about that, and then maybe on the card to begin to either sketch out or to write what that might be. And if you're not comfortable kind of putting anything down physically, just hold it in your mind. But just 2, maybe 3 minutes just to think about what that would be to you, that important one thing that we would carry with us, and just try and maybe get something down on the first card. So nothing might come straight away, we might have to think about it, but and let that kind of silence can be quite uncomfortable sometimes. I like to talk a lot as well. Silence can be quite uncomfortable, but enjoy that kind of silence of thinking back and what that one thing might be, and then try and put it onto that piece of paper, that piece of card. And I'll come back to us in sort of 2 or 3 minutes. There's pens here.
Yeah, I'm not going to use a white card. You need to press the nibs down. Just shake the pen and press the nibs down. It'll need a bit of, because they're brand new, aren't they? They've never been used before. And then just press them a few times and it's on its own.
They're really good pencils to get going.
There
Yeah.
you go. There we go.
Graffiti artists use
So whatever it might be for you personally, just getting that down onto the card. I'm going to give us 1 more minute if we're still kind of getting something down onto that card. Just 30 more seconds. Don't stifle it.
You go with your head.
And just be finishing up whatever. So it was really interesting. Some groups that we've worked with, clearly I knew this group would be superior to Barnsley, but some groups...
Be careful.
That's where I'm from, really, it's fine. I can say it, I'm from there.
Still doesn't make it right though, does it?
Some groups take a long time, but and for me, I mean, I was kind of busy watching what everyone was doing, but it often takes me a long time to get into that headspace. But it's so interesting how everyone suddenly went, I know exactly what that is for me, and put it straight down. Whereas actually, some groups do. You know, it's interesting. I said 3 minutes. I thought we might take 90 seconds to think about what it were, another minute to think about how to get it down, and then kind of finish off. But almost everyone, as soon as we went, right, that's what we're doing, right, straight down, straight onto a piece of paper, and done in kind of 10, 15 seconds, and that was quite amazing. But does anyone want to, and we don't have to, because some of it might be stuff we're not necessarily wanting to talk about to a group of people, some of whom we've never met, but does anyone kind of maybe want to just show us or kind of share what it was that they got down on either of their cards, if you did 2 or both?
Throw one away.
I'll do it.
Yeah, do.
Right. Well, I was born and raised in Huddersfield, Mary, and my great-grandparents lived in Barnsley, and they had 17 sons and 1 daughter, and all but one of the sons worked with the father, or at some point worked with the father at Groundthorpe. And my earliest memories of going with my mum and my nan, we used to go regularly to Barnsley, and we used to take the bus, and my image of that journey was that I know the sun doesn't shine every day in Huddersfield, but it did shine on many days. So it's showing us on the bus, going on a Saturday afternoon to Barnsley, and the clouds are clear and the sun is shining. And at the end of our journey in Barnsley, it was dark. I do recall it being dark and almost foggy. Yeah. And I can't ever recall seeing this brightness that perhaps we would have in Huddersfield or somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's just a memory.
It's really interesting.
That's one of the memories for me.
It's so interesting in Grimethorpe now, kind of what's replaced what used to be there. And so I don't know if you've been back kind of recently, but you can see sort of from where my mum and dad lived, like over the hill, you can see sort of where Oldham Main Pit were, and then kind of Grimethorpe Colliery as well. And kind of these big old warehouses, ASOS is based there now, the kind of online clothing retailer, there's a big warehouse for them there. But also just these kind of odd, as there are in those kind of places, these odd undulations in the land where the kind of grassed over slag heap is and things like that. And I've always wondered this, if someone came from kind of another planet and went somewhere like Grimethorpe, or kind of looked at that kind of hill in the land, if they'd ever know, or just think, oh, that's a strange hill that's in the land, kind of how, whereas in Manchester, which is where I kind of ended up moving to, all the mills and our fancy flats where people live and things like that. But it's so interesting kind of how so much of it's buried, literally, isn't it? And so there's these kind of odd markings in the land. And there's still actually the wheel in Grimethorpe, I think, isn't there, as a kind of monument to it, which is really beautiful. Yeah, because my sister lives there now. That's great.
And I just remember, I didn't put it on here because I didn't have time, but I just remember, always remember, when we were doing the drama, I did tell my colleagues here, I always remember on the Saturday afternoon, we'd be playing out till about 5, 6 o'clock, I would imagine. And we always had tomato soup for tea and sliced bread. And for me, that's the best thing I think I've ever tasted. I always remember that thick tomato soup. I don't know whether it was iron soup, I don't know what it was. But every Saturday that we went, that's what we had. White sliced bread, dipped in tomato soup. Perfect.
Brown sauce, butter.
Yeah, perfect. Good stuff.
It's so interesting, isn't it? How it's always, oftentimes, you know, if someone said, tell me your memories of a time, that's such a vast thing to kind of ask someone, isn't it? And it's always, when we do these kind of conversations, the soup or the white bread, like those specific kind of things that we remember, rather than a kind of general thing of a time. It's these really specific things.
Because to be honest, just interrupting, that's all we had to bloody eat.
Oh, brown sauce on bread.
Yeah, brown sauce on your butties. Yeah.
Oh, sugar butties.
Sugar
That's
butties.
all
Oh,
it's
yeah.
looking at.
They were lovely.
Apple and sugar was a luxury posh.
You were saying as well that, like, it was in 17 brothers, 17 sons and one daughter, was it?
That's normal.
Which is, but
It's normal. My wife's, she's
what
worked
struck me as really
14.
interesting was, you said all but one of the sons,
Yeah.
and I just wanted, then you
Well,
don't have to kind of talk about that, because I was just interested in that.
The daughter was my great grandma,
Yes.
and the one son, I think it was 1914, he went into service.
Right.
And he was serving for 2 years. Apparently he didn't come home for 2 years.
Right.
And when he came home, he was had a huge mental problem, shell shock, and because they were only young lads, weren't they? And anyway, he lived the rest of his life in a big mental institution called Stores Hall in Huddersfield. And so he left his family again.
Right.
To be in the hospital, so he didn't have a very happy life, and subsequently died in Stores Hall, and the rest of the lads went in the pits.
Brilliant. I think I just kind of, that struck me as an interesting detail, so I thought I'd ask about that.
That's me.
Someone else can maybe share what.
Well, I just find this interesting because mine was a vehicle as well of a description. A ferry.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Tell us
because
about
I left Belfast at 5.
Right.
For reasons that, when my dad's job finished, he ran a farm and he was a Catholic, so it was very difficult to get work.
Yeah.
So I was 5, that's 60 years ago, and the ferry took us to the gift. And the gift was, as we were told, a temporary gift of living in England until maybe things changed or we could get back to the south and we would relocate. But that ferry, you carry your past with you. I am still doing that ferry. And the amazing gift he did give us was the ability to send us back every summer, and he would work here. He actually went in the pit for 6 months, which was very hard on him. He was a landman.
Right.
He went in the pit for 6 months to get the money for a house. We ended up in a little terrace in Tunstall. But every summer he sent us back for the holidays. 17 comes into it. We stayed on my auntie's farm. She had 12 children, 3 sets of twins, and it ended up never together, because obviously by the time we would be going back as a family of 5 children, the older ones had left the farm. But I still relocate with most of those people through that ferry with my husband and my children. And all images there. Yes, the sun was always shining, it probably wasn't, but listening to the stories, listening to my past and carrying them through to my children, and the way that these guys now, Erin and her second cousins, just take up where they left off. But it was the ferry, it was the vehicle, and it's still with me now because it still transports us back and forward.
That's that's still that idea of, you know, literally still translating us back and forth, but that idea of it still kind of almost on this journey, kind of as a life journey.
I mean,
isn't it?
that
This
came to
idea
an
of
abrupt
on
end because he died at 48. He helped to build the M6, which was the cause of his death, the first major pile-up. Now, when you are part of a family and you lose a parent that young, although we came here, immigrants, none of us 5 have chosen to emigrate. Our links are still firmly with Ireland, and we haven't. Now, we've travelled, and our children travel, but it's interesting how that can impact on you as part of an immigrant family. And our family are all over the world. But it's a vehicle that keeps us linked with the past.
That vehicle to the past is such an interesting thing, isn't it? Fantastic. Thank you.
I'll go next, I'm not sure. Mine's my badge. I was on strike for 8045, and I've got a picket line there as well. The last day we were out, the day we went back, and got some banners there. That'll all stick in my mind because we didn't want to go back. There was too many issues which hadn't been resolved. And towards going back was defeated. And
we were defeated, Joe.
No, but
we didn't want to go back.
So that's what's sticking in my mind, and also from then on, also the destruction of the estates where we live, in the mining estates and the communities where we live, and also the poverty and the destitution, also the mental illnesses within the estates. You know, people are walking around like boxes of Smarties who've got that much medication in them, because everyday life is a struggle. Specifically if you've got like benefit issues, you know, it has a massive impact of the loss of the industries. So that to me is what strikes me is a major impact in my life. They went back.
It's so interesting hearing you say that, because it reminds me of when you say he went away to war for 2 years. This one lad came back with kind of shell shock with PTSD, and it's a similar thing, you know, the violence that was kind of enacted on these communities, kind of literally, but also kind of socially.
Well, I was arrested 3 times during the mine strike for defending communities.
It's all right, mate.
Come on, mate.
Come on.
We're proud of you, mate. Always.
Yeah, but the legacy after is we're still having to pick up the pieces.
Still there.
Still having to go through the poverty issues, sorting people's benefit systems out, and pep appeals them. That's why I've got low now. You know, but that's what sticks in my mind. From then on, it's gone down, man. The contracts where I was working, they're all now on 0 contracts in factories and in distribution warehouses, you know, and it's you know, that's it, really.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that.
Emotional days, it's emotional times we're going through.
It is emotional. It brings things to the forefront of your mind when you're not thinking about it, but it just shows it never leaves you, really.
That's the thing, isn't it? These things that we, you know, to live a day-to-day life, you often have to kind of bury them, but also kind of forget sometimes that we know, or we remember what we remember, maybe. And because you've wrote a phrase, haven't you, on yours, rather than sort of on your card,
I know, because I looked at that here, and
Yeah.
I thought, who's listening?
Yeah.
There's lots of people listen to you, like going back to our, I come from Scotland, so
Right.
our family were just scattered like yours everywhere, and you get together and you listen to the stories. And then we had the strike,
Yeah.
and I think the biggest shock I had, and I was only 23 when we were on strike with 2 kids and another one on the way, was, what the fuck's happening? Excuse me French. What's happening?
Yeah.
What's going on? This is our country, and why we're fighting for jobs and communities, and it's right. And why are we being vilified? So that was my first awakening at 23. And you just think, why aren't people listening to you?
Yeah.
And then jumping from there, and this is when I'll get it. Crap aren't we us bloody minus families, because your tear ducts are too close to your bladder. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good tale.
You all know. And it's a good job Brenna here, because she'd be blarted as well. But you know what's really got me, and I can't get it out of my mind, is this fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This fire, and when you hear them, the people who've like lost people, and they're there, and nobody's listening to them.
Yeah.
So why aren't people listening in the right
And it was
way?
all preventable as well. It was all preventable.
That's exactly
Well,
what I thought.
We had lots of mining disasters as well. So
Well,
we've
they
had
left
all this
until they're
issues
lucky
regarding
enough.
disasters,
Yeah.
you know, and it's still happening today. And
But
it's
it's
because
like-
they aren't going to spend the money.
It's against our class.
Yes.
And
It is. It's
it's just against our
Yeah.
class, because they don't care, and they're not bothered that we haven't got houses, and they're not bothered that people have been burnt to a crisp. Don't give a shit. And there's
Will
people
they-
there that lives have,
Yeah.
they'll never ever be the same again.
Well,
Like
it's the whole
ours, in a
community.
way.
It's the whole communities.
Not like ours.
No,
but
no,
there was
not to
pe-
that
to that,
degree.
but
Yeah.
to be honest as well, there was the amount of people that died. There was people that died in the strike. There was people that committed suicide after the strike.
Yeah.
My husband committed suicide. It wasn't because of the strike, but I don't really know what it was because of. But there you go. So people's lives, and then no one's listening, so I get pissed off. There you go. That's my contribution.
Well, my only thought doing this was, will there somewhere be a group like this that can facilitate? It's not going to happen now. It'll get, like you say, nobody's listening to the families that have gone through this terrible tragedy. Will it be fast forward so many years and a group will be round a table doing this?
I know.
And it shouldn't wait.
We hope not, Jolene. We hope not, don't we?
We hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, part of it is, or part of what I always hope, you know, growing up kind of around villages like that, like Goldthorpe and Grimethorpe and places like that.
And Olditch and Chest and Silverdale.
Yeah.
You know, and Biddulph, they're all mining villages, same, exactly the same.
Like, it's almost like, to me, it's about, because I get that idea of no one listening. And to me, it always felt like, you know, anytime Barnsley's on telly, they go to the only remaining kind of pithead that's still there, and news readers stand outside there as though that's what represents.
Big K.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, that's what represents us as a town now and things like that. But it's always felt to me like having stories imposed on us, or like having narratives imposed on us to me. And actually, what's really important, I think, about this kind of work is that it gets at the stuff that's underneath that. So the personal stories, but also gives us a chance to rewrite that and kind of and I think if we get control over the narrative of it, so it's not just them not listening, it's not them telling us how we were, or them telling us we were wrong, or them telling us that, you know, these people deserve to die in this tower block because they were poor. And it's a murder of the working class by gentrification, is what that is what Grenfell were. Then if we get control over them narratives, then there's a chance to move forward by telling our stories, keeping them stories with us, but giving us a chance to imagine a kind of different future where we carry those stories with us in a different way, I think, and for future generations. But
Can I just make a point? This is a good point, the hearing one.
Yeah.
Because all these politicians and whoever they are, and councillors and do-gooders and all these, say I've been listening to people, I've been on the streets. Are they really listening? Are they really hearing? Because that's what it's about. Somebody can talk to you, and you don't listen. You've got to hear what they're saying, and I think a lot of the times, in recent days, weeks we've had with this terrible thing, I think people are so distressed and so angry, and they've lost so much, they don't hear what they're saying. They don't get the word, the message across.
There is, I used to say there's 3 types of counsellors. There's ones who come from the grassroots, who want to help and improve things. There's the second ones who are career politicians, they just want, it's a stepping stone. They don't really listen. Then you've got the third who want the glorification of being a councillor. They won't put the robes on, they want to be the mayor or the Lord Mayor. So it's their self-interest. But there's quite a few at the bottom, on that first stage, who do listen. The big problem is getting the officers to listening to them, so it's the bureaucracy in a lot of cases which doesn't listen. And when I first became a councillor, I felt like for 3 or 4 years, knocking on the wall, banging my head against the wall, and all I'd done in that 3 or 4 years was loosen a little bit of paint. But then all of a sudden, something happens, and you can force an hole through the wall. And you can make fundamental changes, but it's persuading the other people and making them listen. That's the issue. It's taking them to experience. I've got one here.
Go on, yeah, tell us what you've got.
This is an empty. My first 2 were happy ones, right? But this one, my parents kept the pub, the Old Brown Jug in Newcastle. And next door to it was the almshouses. And in there was a lady, Mrs. Pass, who used to come in. I used to have to go around every night and take her two bottles of Guinness, right? Because she wasn't fit to come out. And I went in one night and there was no fire. It was cold, it was winter. And so we got talking, I got my mum to come in with me. And we got talking and she got no money. No money at all. And so I said, we got talking, so we contacted then the DHSS, Department of Health and Social Security. And we heard about supplementary benefit. So we asked for an home visit at the time, because that's all we did. And they came along, and the reason why it's empty, when you went into her house, she got a little cottage settee, 1 chair, a dining table and 2 chairs, and a little radio, no television. And this little woman came from the Social Security, and she said, right. And we weren't in the house, but we went round after, and she was crying. And she'd come in, and she said, right, you can't get any Social Security once you've sold the settee, because you only need 1 chair. Sell your settee first, then sell your table, because you don't need a table, the tray will do. You can get rid of the... Exactly. You can get rid of the 2 chairs. Then when you sell the radio and you're left with just 1 chair and a tray to eat off, that's when we look at giving you supplementary benefit. That was means testing, and a lot of that's coming back into play. They were some of my angry and memories you don't really want. You bury them in a way. And I've got quite a few of them over the years. But it's a bit like you're talking about sunshine when you were little. You remember the really good holidays when it was, you thought it was sunny every day. And you forget most of the time it was actually peeing it down, right? But I've got one there, the tooth fairy. I can remember my cousin Tony coming to stay with me and my brother Mick. And he got a loose tooth. And we thought, hang on, if he goes home and loses his tooth at home, the tooth fairy will put the 6pence under his pillow at home. So we got some cotton and wrapped it round his tooth and put it around the door handle to slam the door so we could pull his tooth out. So my mum would give him the 6pence so we could go to the shop and spend it. And then the other one, it's a bad drawing, was a fire engine looking at a cigarette lighter and a cigarette. When we were in the pub, in the backyard, you used to have an outside toilet. And there was about 5 of us smoking in the downstairs toilet, and all the smoke was coming out the top of the door. So the next thing, next door neighbours, right, they phoned the fire brigade, and the fire brigade came. My mum and dad were in the pub, they didn't know this was happening, it was next door, the furniture shop. They come in, and the fire brigade come charging in, smashed the door down, and there the 5 of us there, all smoking.
Fantastic. Three great ones. It's interesting, isn't it, how all three of those were great. And that first one, you said, you know, they're the ones that we might try and bury, or they're the ones that kind of make us really angry. But what was so interesting about that, and everyone's got memories like that we think are difficult, or we might not want to revisit them and things. What I found really interesting about that empty house one was you said, that bit you said just at the end when you said, and this is what I think is happening again. I can see this kind of coming back, and it's almost, you know, sometimes I think when we're younger we imagine history as like a line, and you think, well, we've got, and I always thought, you know, when I was younger, that kind of things just progress and progress and progress and kind of gradually get better and better. Turns out it's actually a circle, doesn't it, in terms of things like that.
There's an old saying, what goes round comes round.
Yeah.
And so it feels like, you know, that's a memory that's maybe coming more to the, you know, a historical memory that's maybe coming more to the fore for you, because it almost seems as though it's something we're seeing again.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting, kind of how that memory is triggered by another thing that we can see at the minute. And how about for you?
I used to do house dancing.
Fantastic.
House dancing. I used to do the King's Hall. I used to dance with my sister's band and Al as well. And in Ireland, people in Ireland used to go to Ireland all year when I was younger. Dance there, competitions, do house dancing, everything. That's from memory.
Fantastic. And was it important to you, because it's interesting, you know, you're saying kind of coming over from Ireland when you were 5 and things like that, was it important for you to do the Irish dancing kind of for that kind of, to keep that culture alive?
Yeah.
Almost?
Well, to keep those contacts alive. And
Right.
that's where I do, you know, I mean, I know we're globally, we can take an aeroplane and fly wherever, but people, I just think about the asylum seekers and the immigrants, and when will they ever link up again with their families? Whether it because of war, or where they come from, and I think that's so sad. Where with us, my dad, like I said earlier, would send us for 6 weeks and then come and work for the last 10 days on his brother-in-law's farm where we stayed as a thank you for giving us that holiday. My dad would work, so we never had a holiday. It was a working holiday, but that's what he did to keep those links going and to hand down the history. And that's where I think it's so sad, because people will come on their own. And the amount of people on that ferry, and John will back this up, that have sat at our table and told us stories.
Yeah.
And the one that sticks in my mind was the African woman
with the 2 children.
with 2 children. And she literally, her village was ransacked. And her father said, you bury yourself in the field. If they come, you bury yourself under the soil. And her and her cousin were out picking a produce, and they came into the village, and she buried herself under the soil. And they lay there, they don't know how many hours, and eventually they surfaced from under the soil. All the women had gone, they'd been taken, and all the men were killed, including her father and her uncle. So they started walking. But they were not trained or past burying yourself in the soil, and they were picked up by the bad guys. And what went on was horrendous. But she actually threw herself off the truck. She threw herself off the truck, and then she was found by the Red Cross. Ended up in Dublin, then discovered she's pregnant. And I think the bit that got me the most was, then the baby was born, and she was being sent down to the south of Ireland to a mother and baby home. So she's put on a train with a bag of stuff and then a dress. And I tell this story because it's repeated all over. And she sat on the train, and a chap gets on the train who'd just been up to the college to see his son and have dinner with him and spend a day or 2 with him, sits opposite her and said, and what would you be doing on this train? And she had very little English, but she understood. And she said, she gave him the note where she was going, and he said to her, I'll take you there. No, in her mind, he wasn't taking her anywhere. He was probably going to, and she said goodbye to her son.
She thought he was going to rape.
He's going to take her, he's going to take you, and he'll probably kill me. So she said goodbye to her son on a bench outside the station. Up comes Mick, in the car, gets her into the car, takes her to the home, and then said to the people who are running this mother and baby home, can I come back and see you? Went home to his wife, told the story. They landed back an hour later with everything that child needed. And then said, can we take her out at the weekend and bring her to our house? And they said yes. That concluded with their 3 children at uni financing her getting her eventually to her own little place in the village, then tracing the one cousin that she had, who they found out was in England, and they've relocated her 5 years on with her cousin, and they financed every bit of that journey.
And she treats them like parents.
She returns to Ireland for Christmas. She's now got a second child and a happy life, and on that man's birthday, so that that little boy can see his grandparents. We were emotional wrecks by the time we got off that ferry.
Unreal, isn't it?
And I'm thinking, that ferry, and that's going on all the time.
Yeah.
It was incredible, that ferry. Not just with us, you know, having to leave Belfast.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's these.
it's repeated,
Yeah.
and it's going on now.
Yeah.
And we carry that sort of saying, listen, we're carrying, it's invisible luggage. It's the invisible luggage you carry with you.
Such a great way to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting as well, isn't it? That idea of, I'm so fascinated by this idea of Irish dancing. My partner's from Lisbon, just outside of Belfast. That idea of Irish dancing as a kind of way of carrying on,
Keeping the community
keeping
together.
that community together.
And the community that
My mum-
you bring in. You
Yeah.
bring in.
And I just wonder what our equivalent of that would be.
My mum used to curl my hair and sister hair every night. We go to dancing, curlers, sleeping in curlers, and mum's like, I'm sick of this now.
Are you wigs?
Buy wigs. And I remember my great uncle and mum's cousin put the wigs on ages ago.
Well, the wigs were really expensive though, weren't they?
No.
Because I had a friend of mine, she used to do Irish dancing when we were children. I was so jealous of her beautiful wig. She had the most amazing ginger hair. And she used to, they decided, like you did, oh, I can't bother doing this, or rollers and all that rubbish. Buy a wig, and it was amazing. And as a kid, I was like, oh, Mum's doing
But within the community, then when you're asked to take part in multicultural events,
Yeah.
and a lovely Jamaican man came to the counter and said, you look so familiar to me. And he was our next door neighbour in Boothfield Street in Tunstall, and my mum used to make them soda bread, and they introduced my dad to their food. And he remembered, he had that vision of me as a child. That was incredible.
that kind of
We looked after each other.
Yeah.
It was community. You looked after each other. You really did. And you brought things into that community, and the generosity and the kindness of they were all potters and pits. And my mum hung the dresses out on the line, and they came back in dirtier than when she cried, and then she had to get a pulley inside to dry the washing because of, you know, the climate. But that really set us up living there until the houses were condemned and we were rehoused into a council estate. Them things set you up in life. And those things, I think, are slowly coming back.
Yeah.
That community through that tragic fire, you see the community that was there.
Yeah.
You know,
You see it's still there,
how
don't
people help.
You see, you talked about slum clearance. I was only 2, but I can still remember at 2 that there was no inside toilet. It was an outside, what they called a dunny toilet. It was a tip-up toilet. And you know where you got your backyard, and then you've got the alleyway at the back. Well, the alleyway was for the dunny cart to come up, and they would take the tray out once a week, out of the toilet, you know, the bottom of the toilet, tip it into the truck and put it back. But it was a tip-up toilet. They didn't have little potties to train. They trained you on the tip-up toilet. And I can remember when I was nearly 2, the toilet tipped me up while it was on it. I didn't fall right in it, but I was stuck. I couldn't get in, I couldn't get out. And then you can remember the tin bath. And you can remember that you were all, I was the youngest, I was the last one in the water. My dad used to come in from work, he got the hot bath, my mum had her bath, my brother had his bath, and me being the youngest was the last bath. No hot water, no gas.
But
Right?
but
And
John,
this,
you know,
that's the type of houses. But it was a great life. And then they got a council house. Bentley was built, the biggest house then, social housing estate in Europe. And we moved there, and it was like a palace. Not one toilet, but 2 toilets, right? You went in, a bathroom, hot water, lights, gas, you know, big living rooms from when we were a little terraced house. And to us, they were like palaces, big gardens. All we had was a little yard and playing in the back. There was no green.
But with the greatest respect, this is being played out again, because you can have a family of 4 living in one room in some dodgy B&B or put into a hotel. They've got to dry their washing in the same room that they're sleeping in. The children, what do you make for them? That's happening every day now.
Because there's no social housing being built.
So again, it's kind of cyclical, isn't it? It keeps coming around. I mean, it's just because the thing about Irish dancing to me is it's such a celebratory way of keeping a history alive, isn't it? Because it's such a joyous thing to kind of watch, but it's a way of kind of keeping these stories alive. It's a way of keeping those memories alive. And I just wonder, kind of see, you know, somewhere like Barnsley or some of the villages around here, what's our equivalent of Irish dance?
Clog dancing.
Clog
If you were in Lancashire, mainly in Lancashire.
Northern Soul.
Yeah.
That these kind of celebrate, you know, because we've got these stories oftentimes that we tell, or the narratives again that are imposed on us, are oftentimes quite violent ones, or oftentimes quite kind of negative ones. But the joy of something like Irish dancing is that it's such a kind of an enthusiastic, joyous thing. And I'm just, you know, thinking about what our equivalents of those things would be to kind of communicate our history down to the younger generations, but in a positive way, in a kind of artistic way, thinking what they might be. Northern Soul's a great example. Or kind of clog dancing in Lancashire, actually what they used to call purring, which is that kind of clog fighting, where they used to kick each other's shins until they bled.
I've seen that in action.
It's the sort of thing they do in Lancashire. But you know, things like that, where there's kind of a celebratory way of...
yeah, but it's the bands as well, though, isn't it?
I was
Because
going to
there was
say
always
that.
the pit bands and what have you.
Yeah, the kind of brass bands
And the social clubs that were associated with
And Kayleys
those things,
and music sessions.
So still through music, I think that's kind of a really good point about the kind of brass bands and things like that.
Because they still
Marching,
Because we
troop
dancing.
they've still got the Silverdale Sapphires or whatever it is that they
But
call
we
themselves.
always had a thing. People worked hard. They went out to work and they worked hard.
And played hard.
Played hard. We had a brilliant social life. I mean, they still have, really.
Yeah.
You always went out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, bank
Sorry,
holiday.
I don't agree with it, because I feel sorry for the young people now.
Yeah,
from when I was
yeah,
brought up in the
yeah.
60s.
Yeah,
we
but
had
we know how to do it.
Yeah, but the thing is, the amount Stoke-on-Trent had one of the best nightlights, club lights in the country. They used to come from all over. London, you've got the Marquee in London, you've got a couple of clubs which were well known. But here, we got the place, we had the Torch, we had...
I
there was that much.
I would disagree. There's a lot of stuff going on in Stoke-on-Trent.
That's what we just said.
Yeah,
But there's no, all those clubs...
But the club-like places...
Yeah, there's nothing, but we used to be able to have a lot of the clubs, like the place when it first opened in the early 60s. They were at the advanced knowledge of thinking, hang on, we need to draw patrons in. So let's have under 18 nights and afternoons.
Top rank.
Yeah, top rank. Crystal. They all did it, and they knew, get them early, and they come when they're older, and they bring the money with them when they're older and working. Now, very few places did that around the country because the police used to object, and the licensing committees used to object. We used to have to persuade the licensing committee to allow them to do it, get them off, well, one way is getting them off the street. Right,
But
so...
the impact of that, that's fine. You know, I could do that. I could go to an underage, but my friends couldn't go. I remember going home, John, and saying, I'm going to Corden College, and my friends are coming. Mum's saying to me, no, if you go to Corden College, you'll be going on your own.
No, it isn't, Angela. Now, I'm talking
They
about...
have to go
The
into
issue
work.
is, we have the opportunity to do it. Just because a parent stopped us do it. I used to climb down the drain pipe and jump in my mate's car and get off to Manchester all night.
Never bloody told us.
Right, you just did it, but now they haven't got those opportunities. Those clubs no longer exist. A lot of cases, the finance, when I was doing it, there was full employment. There was quite a bit of money moving around.
So it's even maybe the absence of these kind of spaces then, isn't it? In which those kind, almost like it's the equivalent to something like the ferry. In a way, isn't it? These social spaces, these clubs, these working men's clubs, these kind of hacienda would be the Manchester equivalent type clubs where these sort of conversations and kind of meetups could kind of happen. I want to pass over to Sue maybe sort of 4 or 5 minutes. Is that all right, Sue? Is that enough?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because it was just what struck me when we were kind of going around and sharing some of these things was this phrase then, if we could tell them something, it'd be this, or they're not listening. And we know, we don't have to define who that is, because I think we all know to a certain extent. And part of what we did on these cards just then was thinking about the past, what this one memory would be for us. And I just wonder actually, on the other card, that other blank card, or we can pass them round if you kind of need another one, what would be the one thing that you'd want to tell the people that you think aren't listening? Or what would be the one thing you'd want to show them about where we are now, what this place is like now, what it's, and that can be a positive or a negative thing. But these people, and we know, you know, if I want to tell them with a capital T, whoever we perceive them to be, on that other card, what is it that we want them to hear, or what is it that we want them to see that we think they're either blind to or they're deaf to at the minute? What is it that they're not seeing or hearing? And I guess just on the other card, maybe have another think about that for a couple of minutes, and maybe just put that on the card, and there's some more spares there for people that kind of need one. But just thinking about what that one thing would be that we'd want to tell them or to show them about this place. What is it that they're missing? What is it that they can't see? What is it they can't hear at the minute? Either willfully or unwillfully kind of ignore us. What is it we might put on there? And just have a couple of minutes to think about that, and then I'll pass over to Sue. Yeah, something like that. Or they can't see it. And whoever to see them to see what is that thing is. But we want them to see it. But they might be deaf or blind. And let's give us 30 more seconds. I was going to do something else. I wasn't just sitting with this bowl as like a prop. We were going to use it, but we haven't now, so it just looks like I bought a bowl along for no reason.
Tell us it.
Got me on stuff, carrying me on a snack bowl with me. I'm quite a diva.
Some peanuts.
So, did you gift it? Do you know what happened? You don't know what happened. What's happened in the past when that's happened? We have gifted. Can you believe it?
Oh, you are on there.
Oh, you were there.
I wasn't.
Okay.
So we'll just kind of fly around a couple of these really quickly, because then I'll kind of pass over
I don't know what happened.
to Sue. That's all right.
It's in my head.
It's in your head, all right. So will you start us off then? You sort of tell us what it was in your head.
Some people come in our shop and they've got new clothes and stuff, and they come in and people have got much money. And they put us on the shop saying, I want to buy this, and we said, this what how much it is. Much money, and we said to them, right, okay, you've got more money, where you can
We'll take what you've
Yeah.
got.
take what you got, because people come in our shop have got enough
Yeah.
money.
Just kind of showing people what it's
Yeah.
maybe really like.
Really-
And that can be any level, can't
Yeah,
it,
listen to,
Terry?
any
Yeah.
level.
What about the young man who was having a job interview?
You were there.
And
I
he
wasn't
didn't
there.
have, I thought you were there.
No, I wasn't.
But we talked about it after, didn't we? And he needed a shirt
Yeah.
and a jacket for an interview, because he thought, you know, I'd be all right in my trousers. He hadn't worked for ages, and he just hadn't got much money. And he said, well, I said, when's your interview? He said, 3 days. I said, okay then. He said, I've got I was thinking maybe a shirt for £3 or £4. I said, oh then, take the jacket as well. Go and have some trousers. And then good luck with the interview. The first pay packet to come in and give me £20 to charity. Yeah, because we fitted him out. So, yeah.
And you've got a word written down as well on yours, is that not?
Concern.
Concern.
Yeah.
So tell us about, just quickly, why that?
I always think the people in charge, whoever they may be,
Yeah.
when they are dealing with a situation, it's a bit, you can worry about something and you just sit and wring your hands and
Yeah.
worry. If you're concerned, if you are really concerned, it'll make you proactive, do something about it.
It's like impetus to actually
Yeah.
act and not just kind of say,
Not just
you know,
sit and wring
say a
your hands.
platitude or a soundbite for the news, but that
Try and pass it on to
impetus
somebody
like-
else. Oh, I'm so worried, what do you think we should do?
Yeah.
passing the buck. Be concerned, do something about it.
Fantastic. I love that idea that's got an impetus behind it. And you've wrote a phrase as well, haven't you, that's quite...
Oh, we have. Well, this kind of goes back to the miners' strike again. But we always said as a women's group that we were never defeated, because how could you be when we got so much out of it and carry on and still do? So I put, we're not defeated, and I think that's what really pisses them off. Because I think they might know, but they really don't know that we feel like this. And as long as we feel that we're not bound and going to just take all the shit that they give you and that we're really not defeated, we will get there. Because there's too many of us not to. Do you know what I mean? And that was also the name of our set. We did a little film thing, you know, like how you do, like a show thing, and that's what it was called, because that was the one thing we wanted to come out. We weren't defeated.
Fantastic.
So
That, as an advocate, when people come to you with problems, one thing like I say, they feel defeated. They feel that people aren't listening. If they go for a PIP assessment, they're always worried, am I or aren't I? And what you have to do is give them hope. Otherwise, they wouldn't even apply. They wouldn't do anything unless you give them hope. And the people who, I won't say it's mainly politicians. To me, it's the bureaucracy who don't really listen. An officer in the council, it's far easier to say we can't do it than having to do some work to try to resolve a problem. It's so easy to be idle and saying, sorry, we can't do that. It's gone. Than to have to think about a way of resolving a problem. That's what you've got to give. You've got to give people hope that when they come to you with a problem, somebody's going to solve it for them.
God, absolutely. Maybe you want to finish off?
Yeah, well, I put listen and hear the voices in respect of bad news, because I'm retired now, and I was a community midwife, and the very nature of the job, we had maternal and infant deaths. Very hard to deal with. And I used to say to my students, we have to tell this mum now what we think has happened to the baby. Because the baby may look perfect, no abnormalities at all. I said, and we're going to have to sit with her for as long as it takes for her to hear what I'm saying to her. And you would say to her, we would sit there and obviously say, some mothers knew anyway that the baby wasn't expected to live. And I would sit there until she was listening to me, the family were listening to me, and we sat there for as long as it took for her to say, I understand. Because the bad news is such, she doesn't hear it. And so I think it's a question of recognising that sometimes you don't hear what people are saying and the concerns that they have, and to be kind enough and sensitive enough to spend time with these individuals. That's mine. Get me upset now.
Sue, now I've broken them all apart, I can pass them on to you.
Yay! So sorry for making you all come here and just to be told pieces. No, I'm not. Not at all. Because actually these gatherings are really important, aren't they? Because if I look at, Rose, what you said about the we are not defeated, that is so important at every single step of the way, isn't it? When you look at what's happened in Grenfell and those other places, there's things that happen, and like in bad news, sometimes can destroy people, but that message of we're not defeated is a really powerful way of kind of moving people forward. And I thought, because what we're trying to do is squeeze the whole day that we had last time into a very short amount of time, what we could perhaps do next is to build on this, is actually have a think of doing something together. So not necessarily individual stories, but some collective and kind of collaborated idea of actually what do we want to see in the future. So if you remember what we did last time, we have stuff there, we've got things. A lot of it is related to the coal mining communities, and I was really taken when Andrew was talking about stuff that lays buried, like the coal. When we did the piece on quiet, we did imagine that world, because a lot of our kids are growing up now in places where they have no connection. They don't know. You know, the big housing estates in Biddulph and Upper, you know, Audley and Bentley, they don't even know why those houses are there. But just beneath the surface of them, it's actually there for the taking, isn't it? But how can we take what's still around us and we know about, how can we take that to build a picture of what the future could be? So what I thought we'd do is take some of those cards, there's some cards over there. If I do this, because I know we've not got much time, so I'm going to try and be kind of quite quick. So all of the other communities that we've worked with have kind of been communities like ours, coal mining communities. These pictures and things that have come out from the original Ghost Labs were from people, you know, like us lot. So all of these things in here actually represent the world that we're part of. And when we kind of shuffle them, it's like kind of the chaos that's in the world around us. And we're constantly having to make sense of this world. So what we're going to do is, if I feel like Tommy Cooper.
Take a card.
Take a card, any card. But if everybody just takes one card.
Can I put it back?
No, stop.
You know why? You know what it says, don't you?
Trouble! Yeah, exactly. Keep hold of it. Because the thing is, you know, people say stuff like, life's dealt me a particular pack, haven't they? And sometimes we've got to just make the best out of what it is at any point that gets given to us.
Sue, it's like my cousin always said her father was a great mediator in Monaghan, and his saying was in life, if it's meant for you, it won't go against you. No, it won't crash you.
That's what we said. If it's for you, it won't go against you.
Thank you, Mark.
What's yours? Come on.
And
Come on.
I mean, all of the stuff that's on the cards have come from, you know, like I say, ordinary people. Right, so you've all, let's see what these cards are then. Let's not be too mysterious. Oh, bloody hell. You know what it is?
Yeah. This is very good.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got equality, crack, deep, trouble, and a hand
Let's
there.
stop it all.
So, together, there's stuff over there. Find an object which you think, for you, really makes sense of what that word is, and just go and grab them. Because what we're going to do is try and make a picture of the object, and then pick one.